Alright, today I thought we'd do a quick comparison video between Sveltekit's form action and Next.js server action. On my left hand side, I have a form implemented with Sveltekit's form action, and on my right hand side, I have another form, basically the same form, created with Next.js server action. So if I go to the Sveltekit's form, I can add a to do. I can just say Sveltekit rocks, and I'll click on add to do, and it adds the to do. You can see the very nice animations there, and yeah, I can see Next.js rocks for the Next.js server action. You can click add to do. No animation for this because of React doesn't give us a way to add cool animations. Well, I can also click on the delete icon to delete the to do. Bam, and for the Next.js server action as well, it deletes the to do. And I can also cause error. So if I click on add to do, like what I cannot add the same to do. The to do must be unique. So if I try to add another to do with that same description, like wow, it's going to load and then it's going to throw an error telling me to do must be unique. The same thing will happen for the Next.js server actions as well. So we have Next.js rocks, and if I try to add that same to do, I'm going to have to do must be unique. The error is going to be thrown. So we're going to be looking at the implementation with Sveltekit form action first, and then we'll take a look at the Next.js server action implementation, and we'll be rating it based on some metrics like the developer experience, optimistic update, how easy it lets us do things like optimistic updates. We're going to be taking a look at mutations, data invalidation, and just basically overall which implementation of this feature is better in both frameworks. So let's jump right into coding now. So right now I have my editor opened on my left hand side and my browser open on my right hand side. We're going to be taking a look at the Sveltekit implementation of form actions first. And so we'll go to the database file that we have, and here you're going to see that we have a couple of things happening here. We have a JavaScript map being created, key string value array of t to dos, and this is the type of t to dos right here: ID, description, and a boolean of done. And we have this function to get the to do. So the get to do accepts one argument, which is the user ID, and then it uses that to return the to do of that user. And we're just making a check here to make sure that the user ID exists. If it doesn't exist, we actually set it. Then we have this other function right here, which is the create to do function. And this is the function that we use to actually create a to do. First thing you notice here is that we are checking if the description is empty. We want to throw an error saying to do must have a description. So if you look right here, go back to the browser and I try to add it to do, because we have some validations added, it blocks us from being able to do that. Then if I try to hack the application as an elite hacker that I am, go to the input fields and I come here and I take off it should be the required field right here. If I take this off, now it's not going to stop us from adding an empty field, but this check right here is going to help us and throw an error. So if I click on add to do with an empty field, bam, we have to do must have a description, and that's this error right here being thrown. So right here, after we've checked that description is not empty, we come here and we get the to dos. So we get the to dos with the user ID that are passing right here. Then we do this check again to make sure that the to do doesn't already exist. So we check if the to do already exists in our array of to dos. If it does, then we throw an error saying to do must be unique. And if it doesn't exist, that means it's a unique to do or it's of a unique description. Then we add it to our to dos array. So this is how we create the to do. The last function here will be to delete the to dos. So again, very similar. We take the user ID, but this time we take the to do ID. First thing here we are doing is again getting all the to dos. The second thing here that we are doing is we're trying to find the index of that to do, and we are using this check to make sure that that index is not -1, because if it's -1, it means that the index was not found. So this found index would return the index of the to do. If it didn't find the to do, it's going to return -1. So we want to make sure that it found it to do. So if it found it to do, we want to remove the to do by um, taking it from the index and going one step, meaning that it's going to just remove that to do. And if it didn't find it to do, it won't do anything. So that is basically the implementation of our database. It's not a real database, but it fits well for this video. After that, we're going to go to our page.server.ts, and this is where we actually implement form actions in server in Sveltekit. I mean, so you would see the first thing you see here is this load function. Now this is for loading data. I'm not going to concentrate on this because this is not what this video is about, but I'll just give a quick rundown of what I'm doing here. First of all, I'm getting the user ID from the cookies, and I can easily do this in Sveltekit very easy like this. And I'm going to check if the user ID exists. If the user ID doesn't exist in the cookie, I'm going to set one. So I'll set to this same crypto.randomuid function, and I'll set it to the cookies, and then I'll return these to dos with the db.getToDo function. Remember the getToDo function, and if you remember the getToDo function, you know that we're going to have to add the user ID as an argument. Now it's time to move to the part of the form actions actually happening. Now this is how we do form actions in Sveltekit. We export this object called actions, and in this object we can have multiple functions that we would use for the form action. So you can see we have this create function here, we have this delete function, and we can also have just one, and that will be the default action. Then we won't be able to have multiple. If we have just that default action, we'll just be able to have one form action for that page. But if we want to have multiple forms in that page or multiple actions in that page, we need to use named actions, and that's why we are using named action, because we want multiple. Like we want the ability to be able to add one, we want the ability to be able to delete as well. So the create action and synchronous function, we are trying to faking a network request here that might take some time. You know, sometimes this can take some milliseconds. We are actually trying to fake that right here. So we are using this set timeout here for 1 second. So that's what this implementation is about. Unless this is going to be going immediately, because we are not actually making any kind of front and back with database or anything like that. So this is just to add that delay. Now we have this requests dot from data. This is how we're actually able to get the data from the forms. So you'll see that now that we've saved this in this data variable, we're able to do data.get description. And here we are getting the user ID from the cookies user ID. And remember, we saved it as that user ID here as well. And now we do the try and catch block. So we say try db.createToDo. And remember, the createToDo function is this function right here. Now we need the user ID and the description as well. And then we do this nice functionalities. Yeah. So that's what we're basically doing, passing the user ID and passing the description. And if there was an error, we'll just return this field. Now this field is from Sveltekit, and if you look here, we are actually importing field from Sveltekit here. So we return a status code of 422, and we return the description back, and we return the error message. And the error.message is always gotten from when we throw a new error and we pass in the message here. So that's how it's done. And the reason why we're returning the description is for those times that we might actually not need to clear the field. For example, if I add a new to do saying the Bola, it's going to clear the field. But if I actually have an error, I don't want the field to be cleared, so that I can actually just easily fix the error. So if I try to add an exact to do that I've added before, so it's going to run and it's going to throw the error, but it's not going to clear the field. And that's why we are passing the description back, so that we can just add it back to that field if there was an error. Now moving down to the delete action, very similar. We get the cookies, we get the request body as well. We try to fake a network request 3 seconds, and you notice that even though we are doing 3 seconds here, if I click on delete, it's immediate, even though we've set 3 seconds here. And the reason for that is because we are using optimistic update. We are implementing optimistic update, and I'm showing you that in a second, but it's actually taking 3 seconds to actually fulfill. But we can actually just click on the delete button and it goes immediately. So now, what happens if there was like an error? So if I says put in a new array here, and I see like wow, and then I add it. So let me go back to my delete to do array, my delete to do function, and I try to like throw an error right here. Yeah, I see error just like that. Now when I click on sorry, when I click on the delete to do, it's going to actually delete it, and then after 3 seconds, I'm going to realize that there was an error thrown, and it's going to pop this to do back, and it's going to show me that there was an error. So I can just click on this icon, it deletes the to do, we give it time, and bam, error, and we can actually write a more descriptive error message, but it tells us there's an error and it pops that to do item back, and that's just very easy how optimistic updates usually work. So we go back, let's go back, and remember we get our data field from this request.form data, get data, and then we can just use it to get the ID, and we can just say cast it as a string. Now we'll be passing it to those ID from the form, but as you can see, we don't actually have a field for the to do. So we'll be hiding that field and we'll be passing it down. So we'll be able to get the ID of that to do, and we also get the user ID from the cookies. And then we'll try db.delete to do. We pass the user ID and we pass the to do's ID, and then we run a catch block to catch any error, and then we return fill error of 422, and then we just this time return the error message. Now to the page where all this is actually happening is very very simple when it comes to implementing these things with Sveltekit. So I just want you guys to stay with me here. The first thing we are doing exportless data, and now we're doing exportlet form. If you've never used Sveltekit or Svelte before, this might look a bit confusing with this export, but just bear with me. Okay, we also have the transitions here because of I'm doing some nice transitions, but don't mind them. Um, we have this variable called loading. I mean, false. We also have this deleting array of strings. So right here we have this form. This is the first form, and this form is for adding the to do. The first thing we have to do when doing form actions in Svelte is to have this method of post. Now a form can be a get. It can be a method of get. It must be of post, and this post must be on all uppercase. And then we'll have this action. This action part is how we tell Sveltekit what form action we want to run. So if I go back to my page.server.ts, you'll see that I have this create form action here. So I'm going to have to do query parameter slash and then the create form action. If I just wanted to be of the default form action, I'll just do this because of this page is the root page. So I'll just do slash there. And if I was doing like that, that means I was using just the default form action, and then I'll have to remove all of these, and it's going to be default. And this is what we're going to be looking at. Something like this, and then I'll do all my implementations here, but then I will only be able to add just one form to this page, and that's not what we want. So I need to have two forms on this page. So that's why I'm adding named form actions, which allows me to add multiple form actions here, and for me to be able to direct Sveltekit to those form actions, I have to use a query parameter and then tell it the name of the form action I want it to run for this form, and that is it here, create. And now if I try to create one, bam, it creates gracefully. And the third thing you are seeing here is this use enhance. Now this use enhance is just used to enhance the user's experience when using this form action, because these form actions actually work with or without JavaScript. So you see, if I remove this use enhance part right here, what's going to happen is that it's going to cause this page to actually have a full reload, a visible full reload, and it's going to give that 1990s website feeling. So if I add a debola here and I click on add to do, you just notice this is going to refresh. So click, as you can see, it's refreshed and it paused the debola right here, and it actually works without JavaScript. So I can disable JavaScript. Um, Give me a second. So I just come right here. It says disables JavaScript. I click on it, remove that, and then I without JS. Sorry, I click on add to do. It runs and it adds it to do without JS right there. And as you can see, it's actually pointing me to that create to do this time because of that's how it actually works natively. Now let me add my JavaScript back. Give me a second. Okay, disable JavaScript has been turned off. And add back the use enhance. So this use enhance, we're actually customizing it because without this customization, with just the use enhance, it will still work. So with the use enhance, just write a bunch of gibberish here. You're going to see there's not going to be a full reload, but this time our loading state is not going to show as well. So the reload doesn't show, our loading state doesn't show, but it goes. So do something else very simple to show you again. Reload, no loading at all, but it goes. And the reason why is that because of that customization that we added, we have removed it. So that customization was just to enable us to have those loading states. So as you can see, it returns a callback function. We don't need this part here. Set a loading variable that we added right here to true, and then would return this asynchronous arrow function. We get the updates, and then would await updates. Now this await update just allow us to run the form as usual. And then when it's updated, when everything has completed, we want to turn the loading back to false. That's why we have that very nice loading state. So let me just remove all of this and show you guys one more time. Cool loading. I was actually typing, but not in the form. Sorry. Cool loading like so, and then click add to do. Nice loading state, and then nice transition. It comes in very nice, and that's basically how we are able to do loading states. Yes, I do think it could be easier, but it's actually very nice and gives you full flexibility of how you want to add those loading states. So I like this implementation very well. And this right here is form.error, and we're able to show the errors that we are gotten from the form actions. So that is what this export let form helps us let us do. This is a Sveltekit specific stuff. So we're able to check if there is an error, and if there is, just do form.error. And if you remember, we are always throwing this, we're always returning this field every time there's an error, and we are having this error part here with the message being returned. That's how we're able to get the error. Yeah. And right here is just the name, add to do, and this is the input, this input right here. So we are disabling it when it's loading, and we are adding the name as description, and that is important because of it's actually that name that we use to get the field. So when we say data.get, we have to get it through the name that we added, and we say description, and then we cast it as a string because we expect it to be a string, and that's how, and that is the reason for this name. And the value is of form.description. Now this form.description is only going to be added when there is an error. And if there is an error, we want to add the form.description. If the form.description is not there, we don't add any, we just want to have an empty string. And the reason for that is, again, we want to throw the description back if there is an error concerning the description, like there is us adding two to dos twice or adding a to do twice. We only want to add unique to dos, and if we are doing that, we want to return that to do back to them. We don't want to clear that field so that they can easily just change or fix the issue that they had. So that's what we're doing here. And we have the auto complete false. We have the required for some validation, and then we have some classes for styling right here. Then we have the button to actually add it to do. This is this button right here. And that is how that works. And the other side of this is the lists and the deleting of the to do. So what we are doing here is that we are iterating over the to do, but not actually likely because of, you know what I'm going to do now? Make this full screen so that I can show you guys this very well. We are doing a data does to do, which we are getting again from the load function right here. So to do's, we are getting it from the load function, and then we can get that to do's from export let data right here. So we can now say data dot to do's dot filter. And the reason why we're trying to filter it out is because I want to only show the to do's that are not inside this deleting array. So now this deleting array is going to be an array of to do IDs. Those to do IDs are strings. So we want to check if if any of these to do ID belongs in this deleting array. If it does, we don't want to show it. The reason why is that is because of if it's deleting, that means it has begun the deleting process, and we want to remove it immediately. Hence, optimistic update. We want to be optimistic that it's not going to fail, so we want to give that user that um real time like experience, that quick experience, and very fast experience that makes them just click on that icon and then it deletes the to do instead of clicking on it and waiting, or clicking on it and showing some little spinner somewhere. We want to just be able to remove the to do immediately. So we'll remove the to do if it's added to this deleting array. So we say filter the to do if it's included in this deleting array. So that's how we map through it. And this part here is just animations, transitions. I mean, again for the form, we have a method of post, and the action this time is going to be of delete. Now we have this use enhance again, and this use enhance is a bit different. This time, this use enhance is also just adding this to do. Now this is mind you, this is when I've clicked on the delete button. When I click on delete button is when this use enhance runs. So when I click on the remove icon, the this particular to do that I clicked on, its ID is going to be added to this deleting array, meaning that it's then going to be filtered out of this mapped to do, and you won't see it anymore. So when you click on it, it pops out immediately. And then we want to return this synchronous function, and then await updates again, make sure it runs it normal, and when it's actually then removed or done is normal implementation of the server action, probably didn't done a network request or anything, then we would then want to filter the that to do out of that deleting to do because it's no more in the deleting phase anymore. So we have this input right here, which is the ID field, and is of type of hidden, and that's why we can't see it, but that's also why we can actually use it right here. We can get the ID here, and then we can use the ID to actually find that to do and delete the to do. So that's basically it for this. And we have the loading state here. That's that nice loading icon you all see and you all love. So that's basically the implementation for this. So you can see, very nice, very, I believe, easy. I don't think I explained it the best, but it's actually very straightforward. Now we're going to move on and check out the way Next.js implements this. So I'll see you on the Next.js side. So this is the Next.js side of things. And first of all, I want you to notice something, which is that when we try to add a to do, so if I just say Next.js, cool, I tried and I add it to do, it adds it to do, yes, but you see the field doesn't get cleared, and it doesn't, Next.js doesn't do this automatically. So I think that is just one part of it I thought would show you. Let's just keep on going. So just like the same way we did it for the Sveltekit, we're going to be doing it for Next.js. We're going to be going back to front. So as you can see, we are in this use server file. So this file is really run on the server. And then we have some couple of things very similar to the last one. So I'll just quickly rush through this only on the parts that are different. So the one thing you notice is that we are actually setting the cookies inside here. So with Next.js, we can set the cookies directly here. I can have the get cookie store, and I can get the cookie. I can say get user ID, the value, or it's going to be an empty string, and then I can use that to set the cookie if the user ID doesn't exist. So if that cookie doesn't exist, I'll set it, But and if it's empty, if it does exist, but the value is empty, I'll set it to an empty array. I would return the array of to dos as this T to dos right here. Then we have the create to do. This time we are not passing the usual things we're passing. We are passing this previous states that we're not actually using. Don't ask me why, but I'll tell you why very soon. And then we are passing the whole form data. And here we are getting the description from form data.get. Very similar to the way Sveltekit does it, but now we have to do this to string so that it's always a string. Um, Doing the timeout to mimic a network request at a delay of 1 second, and then we are checking if the description is empty. If the description is empty, with this time we would not throw an error, but we return an error. So in to do must be have a description, and then we get the to dos. We'll check if those to dos is unique. If it's not unique, we'll say to dos must be unique. Return an error, and then add the to dos to the to dos array, and then we'll do this re-invalidate part. So this is what actually allows it to reload the get to dos functions. So if I give reshare and I click on add to dos, it adds the to dos. But if this wasn't actually added here, and I wrote rubbish here again, and I click on add to do, this is going to just load. Doesn't actually add to do, nothing actually happens. So with Sveltekit, it actually runs the load function when it does the server action, but Next.js doesn't do that. And then we have our catch block where we return failed to create to do if there was an error. We have the delete to do, which is very similar. We get the previous state and then we get this form data. And the previous state we are not using at all. I just want you to notice that the previous state we are not using at all. And then we do this try and catch block. We get it to do ID, and then we get it to all the to dos, and then we check for the index of that to do. We make sure that the index was returned, and then or that the index or that the to do exists, and then we do to dos dot splice to remove the to dos, and then we revalidate the path. That is it for the database part, and then we go to the page.ts. Now in the page.ts we have this form, we have this splitting things into components. Even if it's actually a very, I would say, very small component that we can have all this in one file. Unfortunately, I have to cut things into components because of the way Next.js is going about this is server component, client components kind of stuff. So yeah, we have this add to do form here. And let me just say this quick. These server actions, one of their main objective is to be able to run with or without JavaScript. So Next.js runs with or without JavaScript. Sveltekit runs with or without JavaScript. I showed you the Sveltekit one. I just want you to believe me that the Next.js one works with or without JavaScript as well. So you don't have to waste any more time. So let's continue. The first thing in this add to do's form is that we have this initial state object, and then we have this use form state. Now this is the reason why we are making this in its own component, because we want to use hooks, and then we have to make this use client, and then we are able to use the hooks. And then when we use the hooks, the first thing that we pass in this use form state is the action that we want to run, which is the create to do action. And then we'll pass the second thing will be the initial state, which is this initial state right here. It's an object. And then in here we get return the state, which is going to be giving us this initial state errors or whatever is in this initial state is returned back from the server action. And then we have this form action, which is just going to basically be this create to do right here. And then we return this form action in this action part of this form. So with Next.js, we don't have to put that method or anything like that. We just have the action, and then we put the form action part there. And then yeah, we're checking for the error. So we're saying state.error. Remember, we have error here in the initial state. So we say state.error. Let me see if there was an error. We want to put this error alert here. So, and if there was no an error, I just want to have an empty string. And then very similar to the Sveltekit, again, we have the input, the name, very important, description, we have the required, and then we have some styling. And right here, we have the button in this submit button component. So if I click on this, I'm in this submit button component where we just have literally this normal button, and we have this use form status hook. This use form status hook will allow us to be able to get the pending state. Very nice, very clean, unlike the way we have to implement it in Sveltekit. So some thumbs up here in developer experience. But the thing about this is that it makes it hard for us to add the pending state anywhere we want. So it's only going to catch the pending state of the form if this button is inside the form. So if I wanted to add a loading state somewhere like in the to-dos item, I just can't. If that to-dos item is not in the form, I can't. And that's the downside to this implementation. But apart from that, it's very clean, very nice. We're able to add the pending state, and we say if it's pending, we want to have the loading icon. If it's not, we just want to have this add to dos string. So we go back to the page and now come to this to dos list. Now the to dos list is where all the to dos are getting listed. So as you can see, okay, we have a little bit of an error here, but don't mind that. We have this get to dos. Now this is a server component, meaning that we can just fetch the get to dos directly. So that is one very nice thing about this server component stuff, is that we can actually just fetch this get to dos. Get to dos is this function right here, and we've done all the implementation like getting cookies and all that nice stuff. And we don't have to pass anything here. We can just fetch it directly here, and we can get it to dos, and we can map through those to dos here. When we map through those to dos, we get the description and we get the ID, and then we pass the description and the ID to this delete to do component. And the reason why we cut this delete to do component is because this delete to do component is going to be a client component, and we can't use hooks in a server component. So completely deletes to do components. So it actually forces us to cut these things into components, which I mean you can like because it leads to a cleaner, cleaner code. I'm not sure if it does, but it causes you to have more rigorous implementation compared to the Sveltekit implementation. You can definitely see the difference. So yeah, we have this use form, very similar again. We get the form action because of this delete to do. We add this here. We add initial state like we did it last time, and then we have this form. In the action, we have the form action added here. Bam, the input for the hidden ID. The description is shown here, and we have the button with the remove icon. So when we add it to do, loading, it gets added. We have this icon. When we click on this icon, it deletes the to do. Now, one thing I want you to notice is that it goes immediately, right? But it's not actually optimistic update added. I'm going to make a confession here. I couldn't make this optimistic update work with React and Next.js, and the reason for that is I just don't know. This use optimistic from React is what is supposed to allow us be able to add this optimistic update very nicely and cleanly, but it just didn't work for me. I got it to work, but the implementation was so sad that I just thought that it wasn't worth putting in this video. So I wasn't going to add this. If you do know how to make this work, please, I would love to see your implementation in the comment section. But it didn't work for me, so I didn't use it. And the reason why it goes immediately because of I'm cheating here and I'm not adding that timeout. Yeah, I'm not adding that delay. So if I add the delay, create a form, just gibberish, and I click on add to. If I click on the delete icon, it's going to take some time. So bam, takes 1 second and then it removes. And if I return an error right after that 1 second, if I copy this and okay, and then I try to add this to do, if I add this to do actually, and then I delete that to do, you're gonna see it's gonna take some time, but it's okay. It's not actually going to show the error, and this is another thing that I wanted to show you guys. It's not going to show the error because of now this error state is different. Yeah, it's in this place from this form action. It's not actually from that other one when we're adding it to do. So we're going to have to make this some kind of global state, and then before we'll be able to shoot it up to this component and show it up here like the way we showed it up there in this felt kit. But because of this has a different error handling from the former one, from the add to do form, even if they are number one in the same file, number two related to the same form. So that part I don't like, but yeah, we can actually have this form show here, or we will have to throw this to some kind of global state and then have all of them merged together and showing at the top of the form. So that is basically the implementation of server actions in Next.js and form actions in Sveltekit. Now I'm going to be rating both of them. For me, I've been using Sveltekit form action for like, let's say, 8 months, 9 months now, and I really like Sveltekit's way of doing these things. I really like most of Sveltekit's ways of doing everything. So I'll give the form actions, I'll give them a 7 because I do feel like there are a lot of things that could be better. But when it comes to like developer experience and the ease of use, it really takes that in the bag. And for Next.js server action. Now, Next.js server action just got, I'll say, stable. I believe it was Next 14. I'm not more sure. I don't keep up to date with Next.js as much as I used to anymore. But I would give Next.js server actions a 4. It's going to get a lot better. I know they are working on it every day. It's going to get a lot better. But right now, it's not just there. Right? I don't think anybody's going to be using this to create production applications. I would recommend you using things like real hook forms. You know, they don't work without JavaScript, yes, but they do work and they work perfectly fine. And their ease of use, their developer experience is just magnificent. Real hook form, personally, I think is probably one of the best, form libraries, not just in React, but just out there in the JavaScript world right now. So if you want to create forms right now out of to date, I would recommend you using real hook form because of it's a bit stressful to want to create forms and you have to do all of all of these. Whereas if you want to create forms with Sveltekit, I would recommend using the Sveltekit's form action because of they are just incredible. They are built to work with you and for you and give you the best experience possible. Now, is this a fair comparison? No, it's not because Sveltekit's form action have been out for some while and Next.js server action just got stable. I'm not sure, but I'm going to guess next 14. And Sveltekit is kind of like that guy at the back who's able to look at everybody and say, okay, this is how this person did his own, this is how that person did his own, and then do his own, but taking the good parts out of everybody. So things like Next.js basically have to make the mistake, whereas Sveltekit see the mistake that they made and not make that mistake, making sure they are able to create a more better implementations of this thing. So it's not a fair comparison, but Sveltekit still gets a 7 here, and why Next.js takes home a 4. So if you like this kind of videos, let me know down in the comment section. If you liked the video, hit the like button. If you didn't like the video because of my clear bias towards Sveltekit, then there's no need for you to dislike the button. Just move along and watch another video. And if you have any questions or you want to tell me anything, comment sections are open. That's it for me today. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.